If true, this changes everything for the Boston Bruins, as we yet again have one of the biggest coaching updates thus far in the Bruins search, with names being taken away, names emerging as top candidates, and new names coming to light with some very interesting reports. And a recent report from Elliotte Friedman has given us a very good insight as to what the Bruins' plan is for the remainder of this coaching search. We're going to be breaking all of this down here in this video, but ladies and gentlemen, we are so close to 7K, and your support has been absolutely incredible as of late. We appreciate all of it, and if you're looking for all of your Bruins news, we're going to have it right here as soon as it drops. We'll have it here first, but let's get straight in this. We have a lot to cover today, and starting off here with our first topic, according to Anthony DeMarco of Daily Faceoff, the former Oilers head coach, Jay Woodcroft, is not in the running for the Bruins job. This is after Woodcroft reportedly had multiple interviews with the club. Now, Jay Woodcroft is one of the ones that we saw really emerge late as a candidate, and seems to have been, at some point at least, one of the major considerations for this Bruins team after getting into some of the deep weeds with guys like Marco Strum, Mitch Love, Jay Leach, and really, Jay Woodcroft was the final of those candidates. We had Joe Sacco there for a bit, but of course, he is no longer a candidate now, so we've really narrowed down to a few other candidates, a few less now, and really starting to see Marco Strum emerge as one of, if not the top candidate at this point. I feel like it was pretty safe to say that we could have assumed that earlier on, but I think it was too early to assume anything with other teams still having searches for the coaching staff going on. Now, when we do look at this report comes as finalists have emerged from the Bruins, which all should be familiar names to anyone who's been following the story by now. Marco Strum sounds like the favorite at this stage, as he described by Anthony DeMarco as a strong candidate, while Capitals assistant coach Mitch Love and Bruins assistant coach Jay Leach both remain in the mix. So it seems like right now we're narrowed down to 3, but more stuff has come out and that we're going to be talking about later on in this video, which may lead to more candidates being added, even though reports were coming out as soon as Don Sweeney was signed to this extension, they were going to be signing a coach early this week. And that also comes from Pierre LeBrun as well, which I don't know if I have here in this list, but it's been in the previous few videos, and he's been kind of saying that, maybe today at the latest, which is what I would call early this week, really is catching up on us now. So there's something in my mind that tells me some things are going down that may have implied something that we're going to be touching on here at the end of this video, so stick around. But when we're looking at these candidates, we're familiar with these at this point. We know that there's been a lot of mix going through. Now, if you remove the players and the coaches that were in the playoffs, Misha Donskov going over to Mark Savard, now Jay Woodcroft, Joe Sacco, those being kind of removed from this list, we're down to 3, but when it comes down to it, there's still a lot more. And of course, this is a very interesting part here from Elliotte Friedman, which now sets us in a very different direction. There is word today that momentum is growing for Dan Muse to become the head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and now that is official. This is just a screenshot, which really set this all to me in mind. The gears were turning in my mind when we saw this tweet come out. This is actually official. So Dan Muse, former assistant coach of the New York Rangers, is now head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, why is this important? Why is this important for the Boston Bruins? Is because we are now the only team without a head coach, and there is no rush at this point. Of course, there are going to be some assistants signed for some of these teams, whether you just say the Penguins or just say, the Kraken are going to have some new coaching staff and assistants, but our head coaching search is wide open at this point. And I'll pull us back to this one here. Mitch Love, Marco Strum, Jay Leach, now still all available and will not be necessarily impeded and kind of be poached by other teams. So the Bruins now, although they had to get Don Sweeney signed to get a coaching search, kind of confirmed, get a head coach, things are now wide open. The Bruins are in no rush to go out and sign someone unless they're looking for some other free agent stuff, but we still have time. We still have nearly a full month before we get into the weeds of this. And a new interesting report also coming out from the Western Conference is detailing that a top coaching candidate in the NHL may now be without a job. And this comes from Ty Anderson here. And going from the NHL rumor report, Frank Cervalli, still rumblings that Dallas is considering a coaching change per Daily Faceoff. And this is what Ty Anderson, I wonder if this is creating the holdup in Boston. And now, this comes earlier this week, where we saw Pierre LeBrun, of course, say that the Bruins coaching search is coming down to a possible decision early this week with multiple in-person interviews with Don Sweeney, mainly with Marco Strum. And we've been waiting for this. We've been waiting for this news. I've been on edge waiting for this. But now when all this details comes out and all this kind of information is kind of emerging that the Bruins may wait here for Pete DeBoer, things are getting a bit crazy. And I want to pull this up, this quote here from David Pastrnak. He said, "Noise at the Dallas, going over the Pete DeBoer situation. Per multiple sources, players are not pleased with how he handled several situations during the Western Conference Finals, along with Game 5, and exit media remarks. Told players voiced concerns during internal exit interviews. DeBoer has 1 year left on his contract." Now, this is a very interesting situation because he really sets himself apart from many different coaches in the NHL. He's been one, compared to the list of what we're seeing right now, and rumored to be on the Bruins' radar, he has much more experience compared to the rest of those. And when we go and look through it, there is a lot of different situations here. A lot of missed playoffs, a lot of, loss in the first, second, third round. But when we go to recent years, with not just the Vegas Golden Knights, but also with the Dallas Stars, 4, and well, I guess we could actually say 5 conference final exits. This is definitely one where, you want to see better. You definitely want to see at least a win in there. But getting to 5 conference finals championships in, not necessarily a row, but when you're getting past the first round, is something that a lot of teams would like to have. And this puts the Bruins in a different situation, an interesting situation where they want this rebuild to be quick. They wanted this to come out here, get down to, 1 year, this year being the one that was over, was done with, be kind of sold on this one and get back next year into the playoffs. It would be a difficult thing to do, but you have these younger guys that you traded for. You have a lot of options, and Pete DeBoer is one that has been in many, many different playoff scenarios over the past few seasons. Now, there are some mixed remarks, mixed kind of opinions on this. We know that Pete DeBoer really has not been friendly to the goalies on his team. This most recent event with Jake Oettinger pulling him after 2 goals on 2 shots. Now, that is not good, not at all, but when we look at this, Jake Oettinger is one of the best goalies in the NHL. It's very difficult to pull him in an elimination game. Pete DeBoer done that and then stabbed him in the back by saying that it wasn't his fault, but it was. So you look at that, you go back to the Golden Knights, Marc-Andre Fleury trading him for a bag of pucks, putting him in a terrible scenario with the Chicago Blackhawks before getting traded to Minnesota and retiring there. He don't have a great track record. And when it comes down to a guy like Jeremy Swayman, who we signed long-term, we signed here to be our starting goalie after trading Linus Ullmark, a lot of concerns are being raised there, which is something that I don't really want to dip my fingers in too much right now because, we don't really want to be in that scenario once again when we already had our goalie issues this year. I do have one kind of list graphic here I wanted to pull up, and this is everything we really know about Pete DeBoer's situation at this moment. Multiple players voiced their concerns, one of them being Jason Robertson, 1 year left on his contract, and then really everything else that we've been able to see is just pure speculation. But when we look at the facts, the players have concerns about him. He has 1 year left. Why waste this 1 year if you're the Dallas Stars? And it really goes back to, the idea that we saw here from Ty Anderson. Could Boston be holding up this decision now for 2 reasons? 1, Pete DeBoer becomes available. 2, we have now the only team left without a coach. We have the opportunities to go and sign one of these guys that we've had going through this list here of Mitch Love, Jay Leach, going to Marco Strum, or Pete DeBoer, another new name here that comes out. I really want to see Don Sweeney, Cam Neely make the right decision here. And is Pete DeBoer the right decision? I really don't know. I'm still on the Marco Strum train right now, being the best option for the Boston Bruins with the rebuild that he's been able to do, kind of the evaluation of the players that went from the Ontario Reign to the LA Kings, how young the Bruins have got. I think that's a perfect scenario. So still, we got to sit on this for a little bit. We're going to see some moves happen some point soon within the next week. We're going to get more information, but if Pierre LeBrun is right, we still have now at least until today for the early part of the week before the Bruins make their decision. So let me know what you think about all of this news here in the comments below. Is there any change in your decision with now this reports about Jay Woodcroft not being in the candidacy, about Pete DeBoer possibly being fired from the Dallas Stars? Things are heating up, ladies and gentlemen, and, it really is only a matter of time until we see the Bruins make a decision. So let me know what you think in the comments below. That's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well, but I'm signing out. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.